Hey everyone. So I've been wanting to make this video for a while now. I'm gonna make a whole shrimp bowl setup using right here this bowl and this here stand that I made, and I'm just gonna walk you through how I basically do my aquascapes and my setup. So I'm in my kitchen right now. I got everything here to do the hardscape. I'm gonna go over everything exactly what I have, but I'm gonna go over what you could actually make an aquarium out of. What I set it up with, the hardscape materials like I just showed you, and just go a little bit more in depth. So the first thing I want to talk about is the actual bowl itself. As you can see, this isn't a perfectly round bowl. This is, I guess you could consider it more like a vase. Now there's all different types of shapes and sizes and different arrangements and literally anything you can name when it comes to glass bowls. You have the cylinder vases, you have the bubble bowls, you have these, which is kind of like, it's got a base on it. Basically, anything of a moderate size, that has a good glass clarity to it like this, that looks like it could hold water, you could pretty much turn it into a tank as long as it's big enough. This is probably about 3 gallons if I had to guess. I've made aquariums out of so many different things over the years. Sometimes stuff like this can be hard to come by, believe it or not, because you have to remember a lot of the times this stuff is used like as a decorative setting, and the clarity doesn't really matter in that aspect. Make sure that it's clear, obviously, so you can see the fish in it and the plants and everything, but also that the glass, you want to make sure the glass isn't flimsy, like it's gonna snap if you flick it. Like this is, obviously it's fine, I just flicked it. But you just want to make sure it's sturdy, it's clear. The shape doesn't really matter as much. I would say the biggest things you want to look for when you're trying to find like a small decorative bowl like this is the opening. If you have a bowl and the opening is like this big, you're never going to turn it into a fish tank. Common sense. If it looks like you could turn it into a fish tank, you probably could, as long as the size is correct. Some other stuff you want to look for is the height. You don't want something that's this tall and this thin, like a cylinder vase. That's never going to work. Some other things to take into consideration is, like I was saying before, the thickness, not only for the sturdiness, but also for the, what the hell is it called? The distortion. That's the word. I think that's the word. It's close enough. This one is not going to be as bad because it's not that thick, but the thicker the glass, the more it tends to magnify. And when you have a round single piece of glass like this, it tends to make it bubble out. So what we have here is just some Sirius stone or some mountain stone. You could get this at any pet store. Most stones you get at the pet store are fine. Driftwood. I'm using this piece of driftwood right here because this was in my original setup and I know it fits in this bowl. A nice piece of Anubias on it. This is Anubias copperfola. I'm gonna get into plants later. It's just here because it was attached to the wood. This right here. I tend to like to use a combination of sand and gravel because if you're trying to go for a more natural look, something that looks really cool and not fake or artificial, you go to any stream or any lake anywhere in the world, it's never just going to be only sand or only gravel. It's going to be a combination, and there's going to be leaves and organic matter and debris, and so that's the type of look that I usually like to go for in these small setups. And I forgot to mention, driftwood like this, again, pretty much most any pet store is going to have driftwood, and I like big hardscape. You like to have a really big centerpiece that kind of like sets the whole tank. So in this case, this is going to be in here like this. Planted substrate. This is just a bag of fluval stratum. This is just what I had laying around. Believe it or not, if I'm going for a natural look, I like dirt. This is usually, the planted substrates are usually a little easier. If you're in the pet store, you just pick it up. This stuff is fine. This is really good. It'll grow plants great. In another video, I'm gonna go into the dirt aspect of it. I'm gonna make one with dirt. And then this right here, some little rocks, some pebbles like gravel. This is what I was talking about before. I want it to look natural. So these are gonna be all throughout the tank. With something like this, you're not dealing with a square where it's perfect on every side. So you need to really play around with it a little bit. Certain levels might look different. If I just filled it up to the lip down here, it's not going to look right. It's not going to be deep enough to plant. So I'm probably going to go pretty deep with the substrate. So I'm going to start with just a couple scoops of sand. I'm going to work my way up from the bottom. Once we start getting closer to where I want the level to be, I'm going to start putting some of this substrate in for the plants, where the plants are going to basically be planted, you know, just so we don't waste this, because this could be expensive. You don't need to use this throughout the whole, you know, the whole bowl. Okay, so I'm going to start setting this thing up. So as you can see, the driftwood's kind of just sitting in the bowl right now. It's not fully on the bottom. So I'm just going to build up the substrate around the driftwood, and I'm going to start putting in some of this fluval stratum now. So we'll start with that. So as you can see, this is the basic hardscape that I've done. I don't know if you could see it that well. Just put a couple little rocks in here. The driftwood's in the middle with the Anubias on it. I'm not 100% done with this. As I plant, I'm probably going to rearrange the rocks, maybe move the driftwood a little bit. And if you notice, when you're aquascaping these bowls, and actually really any aquarium, you want to create depth. One issue that I had getting into aquascaping and aquariums, when you have a flat substrate and consistent substrate, it doesn't look natural. You know, changing the color, like varying color in the substrate and different depths and heights and throughout the aquarium gives it a much more natural look. It's kind of like a little slope in this bowl right here. So it slopes, it's higher in the back, lower in the front. So when it comes to planting a bowl or a vase, it's no different than setting up just a regular aquarium. I like to set it up very simple. So I like plants that basically grow themselves. Really my three main go-to plants when I'm setting up something like this. They're super easy to grow. They don't usually grow out of control, or they're very easy to trim back and control it. If you have to. They're slow growers, and they'll basically grow in any light, any sort of, any condition, any water quality for the most part. Just super, super hardy plants. The first is Anubias. What's on the driftwood here, this is Anubias caufifolia. This is Anubias nana. Basically, Anubias as a whole is just like a family of plants that attaches themselves to rocks and wood. You don't even need substrate in the tank to grow them, so that's obviously a yes. I put them in, I think every single one of my setups I have some sort of Anubias in there. Got the Anubias. Another plant that I like that is one of my go-tos is pretty much mostly any type of cryptocarine. Very, very easy to grow. This is Crypt Wendtii. Most species of crypts will grow in mostly any light. In fact, I think they grow better in a medium to low light setting. And there's so many different varieties and colors and different variations and stuff, and they're all mostly very, very hardy. This is mostly like a foreground and a mid-ground plant in any normal planted tank, but because we're dealing with a shallow bowl here, this is going to be pretty much our background plants. What we have here is Dwarf Sagittaria, another super, super hardy, fast growing, but not overwhelmingly fast growing where you can't manage it. This is great for like a foreground plant. As you can see, this is super long, but you could trim this. I'm gonna put this towards like the fore in the mid ground, and that'll be almost like our carpeting plant. You don't even really need planted substrate from this plant or really any of these plants. A lot of times they'll just grow in good light. So these are gonna be the plants that I'm working with here. And again, I'm going to play around with the hardscape as I'm planting and see what works. And then at the end, I'm going to put some floating plants in there, but I'll do that because that's going to be one of the last things we do. So we're going to start with the back and work our way to the front here. I'm actually not gonna put any extra Anubias except for this little piece right here and the one that's already in there, because I think it looks fine the way it is. We'll just put that right there. I'll flip that around actually. That right about there. I think it came out pretty good. So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill it halfway up. I'm going to just double check and make sure there's not any extra rocks or anything I wanna put in. And then I'm gonna go over what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of the tank, like the filtration and the stocking and everything like that. So let's start putting some water in and we'll go from there. In case anyone's wondering, if you're like really new to the hobby, this is just dechlorinated tap water. So it's kind of hard to see. There's no light on it yet, except for the light that I'm using to record with. It's looking pretty good so far. So now it's time for my favorite part. I'm gonna put the display together. I'm gonna put the bowl on the stand. I'm gonna set the light up, put the filter on, do the last minute touch-ups, and put the fish in, and I'll go over everything, what I'm doing. This, right up here, whoop. Just like that. Now it's starting to come together. So this is the light that I'm using. It's a light that I actually made myself for this stand. This is just a basic low intensity light. It's perfect for plants like this. Any budget aquarium light, like on Amazon or at Petco or whatever, will work perfectly in this situation. I'm just using this for the aesthetics, and hopefully in the future I'll be making and selling lights like this that go along with the displays. So we're just gonna put this on so I can see what the heck I'm doing. All right, so the light's on. As you can see, it's looking a little bit better. Still a little cloudy. Here's the whole stand. Next, we're going to work on the filter. Now, this is a topic of conversation that I want to talk about. A lot of people who set up these bowl aquariums, they tend to do it without filters. It can be done depending on the fish you have and the bio load and how big it is and everything like that. I tend to put filters in most of my setups just because there are certain filters that you could use that really don't take up a lot of room. To me, it just doesn't add any extra work, so there's no reason really not to use it. Not to say that it can't be done without a filter, it's just that I don't see a reason not to use one. And I'll show you exactly which filter that I use. Sometimes it can be difficult to find them, especially something small for a bowl like this. So I'm gonna go over that. So this is the filter that I like to use. It's a Penplax Cascade. And this is pretty much like the smallest submersible filter I could find that has good water flow and is very adjustable. And as you can see, it is tiny. It's got a compartment for filter media, so it's perfect. It's got adjustable flow right here, and it suction cups to the tank. Oh, and the other reason I like this, I don't know if you could see, it comes default like this with adjustable flow where you could change the output, but you could also take it off. In a round bowl aquarium like this, if this is pointed one way or the other, you could create a friggin' whirlpool, and you could take this off like that and have it shoot upwards, and it's not powerful enough where it's going to spray out of the tank, but it'll create surface agitation and stir up the water, but not create a ton of flow in the tank. Pre-cycled filter media. I'm also going to give a squeeze in the tank of some other filter media that I have just to give it a seed of bacteria. You do need to cycle an aquarium, but if you're a fish keeper that has a lot of other fish tanks, you could usually do it instantly. Just look up a video on the nitrogen cycle in aquariums, and that'll go more into depth on that. See, it goes in just like that, fits perfectly. Really almost can't even see it in the back here. Just like that. So now we've got a fully proper setup, bowl aquarium with a filter, with light, with planted substrate. I'm gonna put some gravel just to make it look a little more natural over here, some Indian almond leaves, and I'm gonna wipe the glass down, put the shrimp in here, and then we'll get some shots in maybe like an hour or two, or maybe even a day once it's all done and it's cleaned up. So now, in case anyone doesn't know, these are Indian almond leaves. These are good for shrimp aquariums. They help to balance the water. The shrimp even eat them too, so I'm gonna crumple one of these up, throw it in there. It makes it look even more natural also. Okay, so I'm completely dumb. I forgot to record that, but basically all I did, I crumpled some Indian almond leaves, threw some gravel down. All right, so it's about an hour later now, and as you can see, the water really cleared up a lot. It's looking really good. Got the stand here also, made by us. The light made by us. Got a little crack in it there. This is one of the first ones I made, so it was when I was still experimenting. Yeah, everything looks good. And as you can see, it's got like a little messy look to it. But, you know, when you're going for a natural look like this, you kind of want it a little messy because that's how it would be out in nature. You know, it's not going to be a perfectly groomed, planted tank. And as you can see here, we got the shrimp, just acclimating them slowly to the tank. Just putting a little bit of water in here. They'll be good to go in soon. Got some amanos, cherry shrimp, duckweed, which I absolutely do not want any of this in the tank at all. Part of the reason we're going with shrimp is because this size bowl, in my personal opinion, is like borderline for a fish. The tank's just a little bit too small in my personal opinion with all the substrate and the plants that we have in it right now. The only fish I'd probably consider keeping in it is maybe like a betta. Part of the other reason I like going with shrimp is because they keep the tank really, really, really clean, and they're super easy to keep, especially nowadays. These shrimps are so tank bred. They could really handle so many different water qualities and water parameters and everything like that. To me, they're pretty much like the ideal fish for these small bowls and aquascapes that are really nano. They're gonna clean up the algae, they're gonna keep the tank nice and clean, you're never gonna have to worry about, and they look cool. And a lot of people who aren't into fish keeping don't realize that you could keep shrimp and that they're super easy to keep and they look awesome. Yeah, we're gonna put them in there and do the final touches, and I'm gonna show you guys the end result. Okay, so pretty much everything is all done. All the shrimp are in the bowl, looking good, swimming around. Tried to get as much duckweed off as I could. I couldn't get it all. The best way I find to do it is just do it over a couple days. The reason I don't like duckweed is because it just takes over a tank. Some people love it, you know, it does help. It's good for the tank, but it is so annoying to deal with. I prefer floating plants like this. This is mini water lettuce. I just love the way these floating roots look. And they do the same thing as duckweed pretty much, and it doesn't grow as fast. Looking really good. I'm very happy. So now it's on to decorating. All right, so just got all done, fully decorated. Now, I do usually prefer to use live plants for the decorations, but to get it to vine up like this and you know, have it look good, like if I were to do some ivy or some other climbing plant, it would just take way too long. I use these fake plants, these realistic ones. They work good, you know, for what I need it for. Over time, I will grow live plants down these. This is mostly just for the video for now. Yeah, it's all done. So if you watched through the whole thing, I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. I think it came out pretty good from just stuff I had laying around my house. I have a lot of other really cool ideas, stuff that would even blow something like this away. A lot of out-of-the-box, really cool stuff. So if you like what you see, or if you're interested in buying one of these stands one day, just follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, however you want, and we're going to keep people updated. Once the website's all up and running, we're going to hopefully have some of these for sale if you want to make a nice aesthetic small bowl or aquascape like this. And we're hoping to expand and make them for bigger tanks, make them custom, you know, however people want them. You know, I started making these because I wanted to get people into the hobby, and it started as a quarantine project for me, and I'm starting to get a little recognition now for it. So I'd appreciate it if you follow us and just, you know, keep us in the back of your head. Thank you.